roads and things like that, right? Right? Just paint. At that point, I was just like, I'm waiting for death.
Oh, okay. So you saw the guys.
Good noon. How's everybody? Awesome? Rocking and rolling? Have a good day? Yeah? Woo! Look at Jeannie Kassendorf like a runway model today. My goodness. Before we finish, I want you to get up and kind of walk that runway for us. It'll be spectacular. I love it. All righty. So I did mention a couple of things this morning that I do want to hit for you this afternoon. Before we get there, however, I do want to put out an APB on all things gloves or mask because we are running out of our supplies, and with the executive order that Governor Lamont put into place the other day, which goes into effect at 8 o'clock tonight, which I will talk about just shortly, we are going to run out even faster. So if you have ideas about where we can find, or if you come across gloves or masks, please purchase them and let your team leader know. Don't ask the question first. If they're reasonably priced, buy them and then let your team leader know what you purchased, and we'll get you that reimbursement ASAP. But we are nearly out of gloves and getting very dangerously low on masks. And again, we do have another month to go. So anybody who can source that for us, or if you know of I think the last time Jeannie found some in a hardware store, and we sent a bunch of people to go and raid that hardware store. So if you see anything, or you know where we can find some, please let us know ASAP. That would be spectacular. As I just mentioned, Governor Lamont did issue an executive order the other night, which goes into effect tonight at 8 o'clock. That executive order is that masks or cloth face coverings need to be worn in public, period. And that is, the way it's written is, unless you can maintain at least 6 foot distance between you and every other person that you may encounter. And so I think the idea is that you'll have and wear a mask until or unless you're all alone on the sidewalk or whatnot. So certainly that means grocery stores. It absolutely means when you're out with clients. It means any kind of personal interaction that you may be having. You need to have those masks on, and that goes for your clients as well. I would, if you don't have the masks to give them, like before you schedule showings with buyers, please let them know, especially if they're coming from out of state, that they need to supply their own protective gear, or the showings shouldn't be happening. I think we need to do everything that we can do to make sure that we're abiding by this new rule. It's interesting that the way it's written, it says, real estate brokerages need to supply that for their employees, and you all as independent contractors are like on your own. That's the way it's written. Don't you get sick of being on your own as independent contractors? And what's fun is that we're happy to supply as whatever we can for all of you. We just need to source it. So let us know what that looks like for you. Of course, children under 2 are exempt, and if there's an overarching medical problem with that particular person, that the mask would exacerbate their medical condition and not help protect them and others, then that's not required. Here's the other fun fact. If in fact you're caught with no mask out in public, I think they have now approved arrests on the spot, public flogging, detention of indefinite amounts of time. No, I'm kidding on all that. You should have seen your faces, like, really? They've done that? My goodness. No. If you're with people or you yourself have a medical condition and you are stopped for whatever reason, you will not be asked to prove that you have a medical condition. That requires you to not wear a mask. That's the other piece of that. Any other questions on the protective measures as they go into effect tonight? No? Okay. Pretty clear, right?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, Paul, since you're in Versailles, apparently you don't have
Yes.
to worry, right?
Yeah, we'll ship you over some. They'll be in lira, but that's okay.
That's excellent. Lira from you mean from 1994? Is all right. So that's our supplies. That's okay. Unemployment. I did mention I would talk a little bit about unemployment. Many of you received the email from CTR over the weekend, or your board's republishing of the email from CTR that talks about the federal unemployment versus the state unemployment. And there are a couple of different things I'll just quickly run through. If you received it, you've probably read it. If you didn't, here's what's important. They are now expecting the federal portal to go live in the state of Connecticut on April the 30th. Right, so apparently as independent contractors, you all have far more money to get further along in the in our whole issue than everybody else, because that's fully a month later than everybody else was able to apply. The question was asked specifically, do I need to go and apply for state unemployment benefits using the current system before I am to get denied, so that then I can be approved for the federal side? The initial information that came out a month ago, absolutely in print, because I made sure that I wasn't going crazy, said that you had to apply at the state level, be denied, and then you would be able to go and apply at the federal level. The answer to that from Department of Labor in the state of Connecticut is no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to be denied. So that's a little bit of a change. I'm not sure if they're just saying that now because they don't really want independent contractors on the regular system, and they want us on the other system, or if that really is a true change. Questions like if you already applied in the state DOL, what do you do? The answer, according to this document, is nothing. You don't withdraw it, don't change it, don't worry, right? As soon as the new portal is open, one of two things will happen. And this document wasn't terribly clear about how that was going to work. I don't know if you noticed that. But if you've already filed, you don't need to do anything. We're going to get us right up until the 30th of April and get better information about what you do. But right now, what you don't do is withdraw your application. Interestingly enough, some of you that I've worked with who have gone ahead and applied, you've applied and you've either been denied because you're an independent contractor, or deferred, telling you that, well, thank you so much for your application. However, you need to wait for the federal one to come out and use that portal. And then some of you have received information seemingly that you're approved and you should start filing your weekly conversations, right? So the very first opportunity that I'll have is tomorrow to actually see with my own eyes what that looks like. Here's my thought. My thought is, if that's you, if you've received word from CTDOL indicating that you are approved in some way, knowing that you're an independent contractor, which means you don't have an employer other than you, right? So you don't get a W-2. If that's you, my guess is that you probably slipped through the cracks. And again, I know there's at least 3 of you or 4 of you who have received the exact same information that you forwarded to me to check out. I do agree, it seems like you're approved. My guess is that even if they take the next steps with you, you're going to need to be really cautious about receiving and spending those funds, because state unemployment is not available to you as an independent contractor. And my concern is that for those of you who right now have been approved, or at least seemingly approved, if they don't change that before you start actually receiving checks, at some point down the line, someone's going to say, oh, wait a minute, that probably was a mistake. And they will absolutely come back to you and ask for their money back. So I don't want you to start receiving benefits and spending benefits only to have 2 or 3 weeks later them come back and say, you know what, that was actually a mistake. You actually have to go over here and receive this. You need to pay that back. So be really cautious on that. Again, if it's a matter of buying food or not, I'd rather you call me and let's see what we can figure out about food and put that unemployment money aside, because my guess is from the state that is not going to be money that you're going to get to keep. If you look at specifically to that, a lot of you who have received the seeming thumbs up, it has said that you're in this temporary layoff / shutdown payment program, right? That's kind of what it's talked about. And this specifically says it does not mean that person is going to be paid unemployment benefits, right? So it's all still a little bit up in the air. I know at some point you'd like to get actual real information. This is the best we have right now. The good news is that the portal for independent contractors is coming. I know so is Christmas, and yet this seems like it's coming more quickly on the 30th or so of April. So hang in there, stay tuned. We are getting closer and closer. And once I spend the next couple of days with a couple of your colleagues who have received seemingly approvals and get into the system with them to start filing the weeklies, we'll keep you posted as to what happens and how that's going to look moving forward for each of you. Any questions on any of that? By the way, one of the questions that I got earlier this morning was if I applied for the PPP and unemployment on the federal side, is that going to be a problem? The answer is I don't think so. I think that the unemployment, whether it's the state or the federal version of this unemployment piece and the PPP are two things that are completely separate. And since no one I know has been funded on the PPP anyway, it kind of doesn't matter at this point, because no one's received those funds anyway. Hey, Paul, any update on your PPP?
Looks like I'm in the second round, working away. I sent it to him again.
There you go. That's better than a sharp stick in the eye.
Although I will tell you that the state got to me today and said, here's a questionnaire, go through this. So that's actually had movement.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And what's interesting is that Shake Shack was the very first company, at least the very first company that has been reported to have received PPP funds. They received $10 million as a loan in PPP funds. They have since now given it back because one of the criticisms of the whole PPP disbursement was that large organization, it's supposed to be helping small business owners, and these large organizations that are publicly traded applied and were receiving these huge amounts of money. And so I think Shake Shack is going to maybe start a little bit of a movement to get money returned so that some of the smaller businesses can plug in. I mean, we're not looking for $10 million, right? We're looking for like $79,000 to cover payroll for the next 2.5 months. I mean, it's kind of massively different with the asks. So watch for that. All righty, Tammy, are you on today? Am I finding Tammy any place? Let me see. There she is.
Hello.
Hello. There you are. So go ahead, take it away. I know you had something to deliver for us.
Okay, so today I wanted to talk about credit scores and credit myths. I've heard this a lot over the weekend. people are afraid to have their credit pulled because they think it's going to hurt their scores. One client, so I did some research. One client told me that they had their credit pulled in September, and Credit Karma told them that their score dropped 10 points. And I've been working with this client for a long time, so I was able to show them how their score did not drop 10 points. So my guess is Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, Credit whatever, they may drop the score, but it's not impacting your score negatively from either a mortgage standpoint, from a car loan standpoint, if you're renting, or home insurance. I spent a lot of research on this for you guys this weekend to tell you that it does not negatively impact your credit if you have your credit pulled in a 30-day period when you are shopping for a mortgage. I have some people, you guys have heard me use this reference before. I look at Credit Karma kind of like WebMD. You know, it's useful, it's got information that could be helpful, but it's not the doctor. If you go to WebMD and you look up a cold, you could die of cancer or you just have a cold. So when you're talking to your clients about credit scores, I just want to kind of let you know that, you know, we're not going to hurt their scores if we need to pre-approve them or if we need to refinance them. So that's my mortgage minute for today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So a couple of last things, guys. I did want to say thank you to Len Schwartz for doing his ever popular high touch, low tech class today at 3 o'clock. And anybody have any questions before I dive into our last topic for the day? Any quick questions on anything you're seeing out there, anything you're dealing with, any issues, questions about how my hair was done? Can answer that pretty quickly.
Did you get a haircut?
I did. I got them all cut. I got them all buzzed. All right, so let's finish up. We do have Ignite this evening. It'll likely be a shortened version of Ignite. We're going to finish up sellers and then finish early and then take a break for starting fresh on Wednesday with our buyers. And that will start at about 11 minutes or so. Before we finish tonight, though, I wanted to just reiterate to you something that we started this morning, but I want to just underline it again this afternoon. The documents that I promised would go out today have not yet gone out. They will still go out today. I still have about 7 hours or so before the day is up, and they will go out prior to me heading into my snoozing this evening. So do watch for that with additional clarity around using those documents. Let's talk about health and safety. Let's talk about we haven't talked about this in almost 2 weeks. I went back and checked, and it was 2 weeks ago Friday that I came to you at 4:30 and said, you know what, things are getting a little weirder, things are getting a little closer. More and more people that each of us know seem to be being more and more affected by what's going on, and so really, use caution. And I'm going to reiterate that today, 2 weeks later, because of something very very specific, and that is control. None of us has control over what other people do, and the issues that pop up when we look at how other people are behaving, we can shake our heads and we can be really irritated by the way people behave. We can call it irresponsible. We can do a whole lot of different things, and yet what we can't do is control it. What occurred over the weekend with some decisions that were made by sellers that then affected some of our buyers and some of our buyers' agents and one of our listing agents. Should it have happened? No, it shouldn't have. And no one agrees more that people should be behaving responsibly, not just for themselves, but for the safety of those around them, and not behaving selfishly. And I don't know enough about exactly how those decisions were driven over the weekend, and I certainly don't blame anyone. However, I do want to make sure that what we're talking about is behaving responsibly. And when you're having conversations with your own clients, that you're taking a really hard, firm stand on responsible behavior. It starts with you and then goes right to your colleagues and goes to all buyers and sellers. And we have to just continue to do the right thing to make sure that the people around us, starting again with ourselves, are protected. So what am I saying? I don't know. I don't really know what I'm saying. I'm saying that continue to make really wise choices. Continue to over communicate to your clients, whether they're sellers or buyers, about the risks that are involved with physical showings. Because we haven't talked about it in 2 weeks, it seems like the responsible thing to do today to just put it back on your radar and make sure that responsible behavior floats right to the top again. It's far too important that we all contribute in whatever way we can to not just keep ourselves safe, but keep everybody else safe, right? If one seller makes a bad decision, it puts so many different people at risk. In conversations I was having today, it really kind of opened my eyes to the ripple effect that has when one person makes a bad decision. And so let's just do everything we can possibly do to keep those decisions responsible. That doesn't mean that we can control everybody, because you just can't. I was on the phone last week with a seller. I think I may have told you this, but I'll reiterate it, who said to me, how can you personally guarantee that all of these protocols will be followed? And my answer was, I can't. I appreciate that, but I can't personally guarantee that for you. And they said, well, clearly you can't control other people, but you can certainly control the people in your own organization. And I said, nope, I can't do that either. Right? I get to lead 450 independent contractors. I am proud to lead 450 independent contractors, and yet I'm not the boss of them, right? And so the idea of living inside of an industry that is so fragmented in terms of responsibility, I'm happy to take responsibility for and with you. And yet we all have to continue to make sure that we're saying and doing all the right things to drive that in a direction that heads heads to protection and to responsible behavior instead of shortcuts, right? I think that's really what I'm saying. We're still in a spot where shortcuts don't cut it, and we've got to do everything we can do. Ask the extra question. Take the firmer stand. Walk away from a potential showing. Do the hard things that define us in more difficult times, instead of the shortcuts that, because the shortcuts will define you too, and that's probably not where we want to go. That was a big long ramble to say, please continue to stay safe and make good decisions, because it's just so crazy important. We're not over. This isn't done, and starting to feel a little bit like it's done on the outside to me with the way people are talking. It's not done, and we've got to stay really vigilant to make sure that we and the people around us are still healthy and able to purchase, or else what was the point, right? What was the point? Questions, comments, concerns about that? Feel a little like a preacher. It's not meant to sound that way. I just want to make sure that we're all thinking about it, right? Because it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget. All right, guys. It is 4:55. We're going to start Ignite in about 5 minutes after just a quick little break. Have a fantastic evening for those of you not staying on. We will see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Have fun, be safe, and Enjoy your dinner. Recording. Okay, we're now recording again. So welcome to Ignite. I have to say that for the recording. And so we're just kind of checking in on where we stand with getting through your database. Any other challenges or successes to throw out? Is Kim the only one doing it? Is that what I'm reading?
Maybe I can share. I just put an offer in. I have a seller coming back on the market tomorrow. I'm working on another price reduction with another seller as we speak. And I just got 3 people from my database who came back for pre-approval looking to invest, actually 4. So I think by keeping in touch with my database, it's helping me a lot, and I feel like I'm super busy. I actually am super busy, so I think it's good news.
I love that. I love it. You know, and so seeing results from those connections, that's the whole goal, right? If you're seeing results earlier, even better. But be certain that you don't miss the opportunity to create results later on. Again, I would go back to don't just listen to what I'm saying, because I'm just passing it along from Gary and Mo and Ben Kinney and Gene Rivers and Jason Abrams, all the people that we've had the opportunity to speak to and listen to in the last couple of weeks. Every single one of them has the exact same advice. Get really hot and heavy with your database right now to make sure you're solidifying those relationships. It almost doesn't matter how brilliant you are at real estate, because if you're not solidifying the relationships inside of your database, you don't get those opportunities. So just underline how important that is, and make sure that you are really paying close attention to making a massive impact in that one arena. If you focus on nothing else, focus on that. How am I getting through the database? Right, I see Jacqueline's getting through her entire database. John Catazone, 50% plus. Kim and Mike, 50% plus. Right, so that's really good work, right? That's really good work. Now we gotta push it across the finish line, because as I said one day last week, really, as we head into May, you should be on call number 2. To at least the top 100 or 200 people in your database. If you have larger databases that get through everybody once, and then the second round will be the top 100 or 200. However, May is going to be that now I'm calling them back to make sure that they're still okay, to make sure that whatever we talked about last time, we can start moving forward on, to give them an update on where you can find gloves or masks. Don't give them the information until we go and buy ours for you, though. So hold that off a second. And then the other piece to really dive into is how many of you have done an event for either a portion of or your entire database in the last couple of weeks, or have one planned for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Right, so a couple of you, I'd love for more hands to be up. Right, keep that focus. What can I do, and how can I do it? And let's get it done. Right, I was asked twice in the last 24 hours to produce another investor seminar via Zoom for your databases, and so we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago. I've now been asked directly twice, so that's all it takes. Can't keep me away from having that conversation. So I'm gonna dive in, and we'll do that probably the end of the first week or beginning of the second week of May. And what'll be fun is that for those of you who haven't utilized that as an opportunity, or pushed it out and had poorer response, because people get home late, or they couldn't find people to watch the kids or whatever, they're captive audiences right now, so we can turn everybody into investors. Somebody asked me as part of that request, do you think it still makes sense to be having conversations with investors? I thought, oh my goodness me, right? It makes more sense now than ever, right? If we're going to head into some kind of a shifted market, there's going to be opportunities galore. And even if people are struggling right now in terms of lower income, that will be a short-lived thing for many of your people. So we're going to put that on for you. So you can count on at least one in the next couple of weeks. What else might you do? Anybody have something planned for the next week or two that they want to just let us know?
Right.
What are you doing? Yes, Cindy.
I haven't planned it yet, but I have the idea, and I think I'm going to move forward with it. I'm going to invite about 25 of my clients to a dinner party, and it's a dress dinner. And I'm going to have everybody making dinner, and we're all going to sit down and eat at the same time in our fancy clothes.
I love that. That's awesome, right? That's a really good idea, right? For those of you who are looking for something to do, and I can see some faces on here that I know like to cook. So make sure you're diving into some of these ideas. Right, Kimberly, what you said you did something on Friday? Was that you and Donna doing that wine thing, or is that?
No, I actually did a virtual bingo night. So with my A clients, we played 5 games of bingo, and I didn't realize how competitive they really are.
Yeah.
So what I was able to do is go and brand bingo cards, and I had a caller. I partnered with a lender and an attorney, and we created a wish list of prizes on Amazon. And each winner, after they won, was able to go to Amazon and choose their gift. And we ordered it and had them delivered by Amazon to our client's home. And so we selected, games, family games, candles, puzzles, things of that, gardening tools, things that people could use now in this environment. And they really loved it. And, when they got back to our private Facebook group, there were people who were bragging because they won twice of the game. And people were like, okay, well, let me know when the next one is. So I'm actually thinking about doing this weekly.
Love it, love it, love it. Right, so many different ways to continue to connect. Hey, Donna.
Hey, so since the beginning, I have been hosting virtual happy hours. The 5th one will be tomorrow. They are Tuesday and Saturday, and it's just growing. And it started with about 6 people, and now the guest list is probably closer to like 20, but not everybody can come to every single one. But what I found when I was doing my care calls was that a lot of people were missing their community, where whatever it was they were gathering on a regular basis, their friends, their family, their whatever. And it's interesting because several of them know each other, but the ones that have joined that don't know each other, it's like, it's like a meet and greet. And people, after the second one, they're like, are we going to continue? Is it next week? So I said, I'll do it as long as, people come. Everybody comes with a cocktail, and we just laugh and talk for about 40 minutes, and it's great fun.
I love that. I love it. Right. And you can, what's interesting about these ideas is that as you continue to develop them, you can then start kind of very, very slyly on the side, moving your business into it. Right. So Donna can have little coasters made with her brand on it. You have them already?
I know, but I got a referral on the last one.
Oh, well, see, there you go.
And she wanted to start like chatting. I said, let's talk offline.
Yeah, indeed. But see, the whole idea, and this is such a brilliant path forward, right? It's for those of you who were in a Jason Abrams session about 6 months ago, it's what he talked about. do something that you love and that your database loves, and you get the credit for being the center of it. And then slowly, you know, if it's virtual happy hour twice a week, Donna can have coasters made with her brand on it and have them delivered to each house before the next one. And then she can, you know, just kind of, okay, everyone hold up your Donna Gilbert Realty Group coaster. I want to see everyone's drink on the coaster, right? Simple little touch. It reminds everybody about the whatever. You can start naming different cocktails. Oh, you know, let's all make the multiple offer this week, right? Let's all make the or whatever. And so you start having fun with it by working in some real estate conversations. So it's not like banging people over the head with I'm a realtor. You're just keeping it in that light, airy, fun mode and working stuff in. I love hearing your ideas, because then we can plus them together and then keep the idea growing and going. Anybody else? How about one more? Who else is doing something they want to put on the table?
I'm going to have a cook along with a few friends.
Love it.
Yeah, because they're all terrified of making like crusts. So I'm going to make a quiche with them and teach them how to make a crust, which is stupid easy. And they're all excited for that. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to learn how to make a crust. Like, okay, it's flour, water, salt, and butter.
Right, right.
So, but it's going to be fun.
You know what's so interesting about these kind of cooking ideas is that when people travel, like to Italy or France, I mean, like they pay a ton of money to go and stand and watch someone else show them how to make pie crust, right? Or something.
So I'm in the wrong business.
And so when
you'd be charging them for this.
I think it was Mike. Mike, did you make an ice cream cake? Did I see that you made an ice cream cake?
Yes, I was bored, so I made an ice cream cake.
Right, and so how many people know how to actually make an ice cream cake? So if you just invited people to kind of watch you, it's like you become like their own little Martha Stewart. And when you start to like the next ice cream cake should have a Fix and Fashion logo on the top of it that nobody talks about, but then people see it, and then you're taking pictures of it, and it's about the event or it's about the activity, but it's a reminder about what you do, right? So all these different things where we can really start to, I almost feel like this is a blessing in disguise to really help us figure out how to connect with people at a different level, at a more human level, because success in your database is this. It's what we're talking about right now. It's not necessarily making calls saying, hey, do you know someone who's looking to buy, sell, or create wealth by investing in real estate? That happens as a byproduct of these fun ideas and events that you're hosting. So I love that you're all diving in and getting your feet with all of that. If you're not, I wholeheartedly encourage you, even if it's you and 3 other people, to do something in the next 7 days. Put something on the calendar. Don't be afraid of it. And here's my biggest piece of advice for you. Don't be afraid of having it suck. Don't be afraid of it feeling stupid or silly. Don't be afraid if only a couple of people show up. None of that matters, right? None of it. As a matter of fact, I would make the goal to do the dopiest, suckiest thing possible, so then you can't fail, right? As long as you're getting a couple of people together with you and you get to have a conversation and distract people for 20 minutes, that's the other thing. It does not have to be a 4-hour extravaganza, right? 30 to 40 minutes, that's plenty. That's plenty. We all spend way too much time on Zoom anyway. I'm not sure you can freeze an ice cream cake that quickly, but right, you have to do the first part of ice cream cake and then like do the second part. Or if you're really like Martha Stewart, remember what Martha used to do. She would start it, and then she'd have one that was already half done in the freezer and take that sucker out and say, well, an hour later, this is what it would look like, and here's how you continue. Maybe we should have Martha be a guest on our Zoom next week. She could tell us exactly how she does this crap. All righty. Oh, I'm so excited. You guys made my day. My energy was really kind of waning. And I'm so excited to hear about the things that you're doing because it's exactly It's exactly right. It's exactly what you should be doing right now to continue those relationships. All righty. So remember, 1 week from tonight, next Monday night, my expectation is that we're going to, every single person on this call is going to list what they did this coming week, right? It can be the same thing that you just talked about if you did it again, right? Doesn't have to be new and exciting. And then how did you plus it, right? All those things that we have a whole chat box filled with 48 different ideas. Make sense? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All righty. Hey, can we talk about money for a second? Let's talk about money for just a quick second, and then we're going to dive in and finish up our anatomy of a seller transaction with a fun conversation, and then we're going to be done for the evening. My guess is that we'll finish a little early tonight. So money. Let's talk a little bit about money. Instead of, I've heard a lot of books that are being read, which I love, like filling our brains. A lot of great ideas about connecting with database and with family. A lot of movies being watched, some binge television series being checked off. A lot of puzzles being done, card games, right? Board games. Have you ever played more board games in the last couple of weeks, right? And yet, well, there's another cool idea, right? If you have people who all have the same board game, like if everybody has Sorry, like find 4 people who have Sorry, or 4 people who have Life or Monopoly, because then you could keep the board the same, and you could play with your board and their board, right? It's like I saw a chess game the other day being played, and that's easier because it's 2 people. And yet, as long as you know exactly what the board is supposed to look like and everyone's moving the pieces around the way it's supposed to be moved, you can actually play. Oh, Scrabble, that's another really good idea. I love it. So board games. All right, so here's the money conversation. Make some time in the next 30 days, at least once a week, to work on something that's rooted in your finances. And the reason I'm asking you to do that is because it's too easy when things start to go sideways a little bit, right? To start to think, well, now's not the time to be focused on my money. I might have less of it, right? I might not be able to earn as much of it, right? And what I want you to really stay focused on is that, first of all, now is a time to be focused on your money, like more than almost any other time, because it could mean more right now. And what I mean by that is, if there's less of it, you have to stay focused on it, not from a want or lack perspective, but from a strategic perspective, right? To make sure that if there is less of it, I'm not saying that's everybody's scenario, but if there is less of it right now, to make sure that you're manipulating it well and being a good steward of the funds that you do have. And the other reason is to make sure that you have funds ready for opportunity, right? Funds ready for opportunity. I don't know what those opportunities are going to be, but I guarantee you in the next 3 to 6 months, opportunities for each of you will show themselves, whether they're investment opportunities or stock purchase opportunities, or like whatever your thing is. Maybe an investment in a tool because the vendors in your business are going to be hurting for business, and so they're going to start offering really good deals on something that you maybe thought you'd dive into at some point. So to be ready to take advantage of some of those things. And so what I'd love for you to do is take a look at, if you've never done that net worth exercise, now's the time. Some of you are cringing. I can see it in your faces, right? Who's done that net worth exercise in the last 30 days or 60 days or so? Somebody tell me why it was important. Tell me why you thought it was a benefit to you.
So it's for planning for allocation.
So say that again, Debbie. I'm sorry. Planning
For allocation.
And so what do you mean by that?
So, I mean, it's looking at where there are funds and where there may not be quite the same amount that there had been in the past, to make sure that enough is going into the right accounts. It has caused me to leave all my credit cards at home. And I don't know if I said this publicly, but we've got the first month now of the new credit card bills. It's like, whoa, that was a raise.
Yep.
Because we're living on only the debit card. So it's only cash that's coming out. Huge, huge benefit to doing that.
So to validate what Debbie just said, I'll give you the Market Center's numbers. The last 3 months, the company credit card, which we utilize to run both Market Centers, has been anywhere from $25,000 to $35,000 a month. Right, that's the credit card bill.
Right.
This past month, $8,300.
Big deal.
I actually, when I got it, I actually looked at the dates and thought, are they doing weekly billing now? I don't. I was so concerned that they had missed a big chunk. Nope, $8,300, right? Because the same type of thing. We're looking where we're spending money and we're chopping stuff that we don't need, right? And without really looking and examining your money, you don't know how to make those allocations. You don't know where you can find some additional savings.
The other piece I think I did mention on Friday, which is looking at your business's company dollar. What is going to remain after you've paid yourself in the next 90 days? So looking at your pendings, paying yourself your salary, and then looking at what you have to run your company and paying those bills as they come along.
Oh, and P.S., your household is just another company that you run. Right? Your household is just another company that you run. And so, Velma, one of the things that I can send out is a personal balance sheet. It's just a list of all of your assets and a list of all of your liabilities to kind of come up with your net worth. That's really is the net worth exercise. It's what do I have and what do I owe? And so I can send that form out if you don't have it. So take some time is the point. Take some time to get in bed with your money a little bit and see what's there, see what's missing, see what you have to replace. Right, because that's another thing that I keep looking at is, because as I've said to you previously, I'm not willing to part with my income for the year yet. I'm not willing to give up on that. And so I'm being very, very vigilant about figuring out what is not coming in right now and tracking that separately to say, okay, so once all of this is kind of done, what do I need to do and what do I need to make up? So I know what I have to make up. So it's not a guess. Right now, one of the things that when I got paid from the Market Centers this month, all the staff members gave up their insurance stipend. Right, so I got paid less money from each Market Center to cover my insurance. That's on a list for me. And every single month that we don't pay insurance stipends, I don't get that, just like the rest of the staff doesn't get that. That goes on a list. I'm not getting that. If I have rents that are not coming in from investment properties, that's on a list. Where was I at as an average and what am I averaging now? What's the differential? That's on a list. So I can keep a tally to say, okay, so now it's July 1st. How do I make up $20,000? How do I make up $10,000? How do I make up $1,200? How do I make up $50,000? I don't know what the number is, right? But then I know what I have to make up, and then I can strategically plan to figure out how I'm going to make up X number of dollars. If you don't track it, how do you know what you haven't earned, right? Do you have an expectation about what you'll earn each month versus what you do earn? It leads us to another interesting conversation, and I'll have this one quickly, ask any questions, and then we'll charge forward. Do you have an expectation from your business about what you'll earn each month? And are you tracking that? Right? Do you expect $10,000 a month, or $5,000 a month, or $12,000, whatever that number is? Do you have an expectation of what you will earn, so that when you earn over that, you get to take that overage and stick it someplace so that you're not spending it? For the months where you may not earn that number, you have something to pull to make sure that your income is more steady. And in months that you don't earn at that level, based on what you've designed for your business, are you tracking that so that you know what you have to make up, right? If you don't put a number there, if you don't name that, you don't have an opportunity to create a plan around it, and then it's just lost, and it's usually lost forever. Ugh. That does not make me in a good mood. Yuck. Lost and money are two words that I think just should never be in the same sentence, ever. Now, money and found, now that's a sentence I like to hear. Far more, right? Money and multiplication, multiply, abundance. I like all those words instead of lost, right? Any questions on getting a little more personal with your money right now?
I would say one more thing. I think sometimes when we feel like there's a shortage and when we're a little uncertain about our finances, we duck and hide and try to pretend that it's not an issue. And it doesn't help.
Yeah.
It's really important to get real with your money, really real. And I say that because I've been there, and you can save yourself trouble if you face the deal right up front and make some adjustments so that you don't dig yourself into a deep hole.
Yeah, that is such a powerful statement that Debbie just made. I will tell you transparently, I still do it. There are things that come in the mail that I purposely don't open until I'm ready to open them, right? I'll tuck them in my briefcase and I'll carry around closed things because I know that bill is going to be bigger than I want it to be, and I hide from it a little bit. I mean, it's stupid, it's ridiculous, and yet I'd still do it. I'm carrying one right now. It's due on the 22nd, so it's due in 2 days. And I haven't opened it yet because I know what's in there, and I just don't want to see it. And I will tomorrow because I'll open it and I'll write the check and I'll go and pay it. And yet I do hide from it sometimes. It's just like a little mental game. I don't know, right? So when Debbie says it's human to do that, recognize it is kind of human, and so don't be afraid of just looking at it head on, because it just is what it is. And here's what I've learned over time. It doesn't get smaller if you don't look at it. It's still the same. When I open that envelope tomorrow instead of 2 weeks ago, it's still going to be the same. It didn't just diminish automatically. All right.
Can I add a note?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Tony Robbins' son is holding a seminar. I think it's week 5 this Friday from 11 a.m. Eastern time. His name is Jarek Robbins. And if you guys want, it's free. If you guys want to jump on it, I'll put the link on the chat.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Anybody like that who we can fill our brains with is time well spent.
Rick, can I add a point?
Of course, Chris, go ahead.
So this year, since the beginning of this year, and that first ALC retreat, the 2 books you gave out, Wealth Can't Wait and Profit First. I first read Profit First and I loved it and I implemented it right away. And that's been a huge help in managing money. And essentially it's just like an electronic system, envelope system for managing your money. And it's super simple and it's definitely beneficial. And even in times like right now, we shouldn't just be forgetting about profit. Like profit still should be coming first. And this is a very simple way to do that. So if you don't have the book, definitely pick it up and read it. It's been very helpful.
Yeah, that's a great point, because those 2 books truly are. And I think do we have another Financial Friday this Friday, or is that the following Friday? So yeah, I think the next piece, what's today, the 20th? I think we meet again this Friday for the next piece of Wealth Can't Wait. So for those of you who are doing that with us, make sure you get that next section read. I'll give you one trick that I use to make sure that I'm saving at a level that I need to save at and can't spend it. I convert some of my money into foreign currency. And I save the foreign currency because I can't spend that here, right? I'd actually have to go and, so in my safe at home, I have a couple of thousands of dollars in euro, right? That it starts with vacation. And so I come back from vacation, anything that I don't spend on vacation, I convert into euro, and then I pop into my safe. And that's just a whole nother version of savings for me, because it's the safest place. I have, most of you know, I have bank accounts all over creation. And yet in some way, shape or form, I can access those funds. Sometimes it takes a couple of days to get them where I can actually spend them, but I can access them. And so I started this probably 10 or 12 years ago, just converting things into foreign currency. And then I save the cash in foreign currency. Minimally, it helps me save for the next vacation, because then I have the cash to go on vacation with. Maximally, it allows me to store cash and not have any kind of temptation to send it, to spend it. And what I have learned over time is that whatever money you might lose in the conversion process, if you are a spender, knowing that you can now not spend that money, you will come out ahead even with the conversion rate. Right now, I also have a couple of $1,000s in Egyptian pounds, because I was supposed to go to Egypt when this whole thing hit, and I had my money, and so now I've got more than I normally keep in that little safe. And no, you can't come over. I'm not going to tell you where the safe is. No drachma. No, I have no drachma. But take a point. What is that, John? Is that drachma?
It's actually a South African rand note.
Oh, it's rand. Okay, well, there you go.
You can have it if you want.
I do want. If it's valid, I'll take it.
Sure.
John, Rick will take a dime. He'll pick it up from the street, so don't put money in front of him.
Because I'm a money magnet. I learned that in bold. I'm a money magnet. And so to say no to anything, I think sends the wrong message to the universe, right? People who step over pennies on the street, that sends the wrong message to the universe, like that you've got plenty and you don't need any more. No, I want to send the message that I am a vessel for fundage, and I'm more than happy to continue to have it flow right through me. Fundage sounds like a foot problem or something, right? I don't have fundage. I am fundage. All right, let's get started. So in your anatomy of a seller transaction, I want to finish this because we can get through the rest of this pretty quickly. I'm pretty sure we were at the top of the third page, which is number 18, right? Number 18. And 18 talks about, once inspections are done, you can expect to hear from the buyer's agent within 48 hours regarding any items that need to be addressed. And so remember we started the conversation last week by talking about being directive. Well, this is another area where as a listing agent, you need to be certain that you are being directive. And what I mean by that is once the inspections are done, instead of just waiting for the buyer's agent to get back to you, have a conversation and set a deadline, right? If Mike represents the buyer and the inspections have been done, I'm going to connect with him when I know those inspections are done to say, hey, Mike, how'd it go? Anything any big issues that we might have to address? Mike might not have a list of things to discuss right now. However, if the inspector said that the entire roof needs to be replaced because it's rotten on 3/4 of it, well, that's kind of a bigger issue that Mike might say, we may have some roofing issues. And so now at least I have a little bit of a heads up. And then I'm going to ask him very specifically, when do you expect that I will hear from you with any issues the buyer is looking to address? And I think sometimes some of us don't ask that question because we think somehow it lends itself to asking for more issues than we're going to come up ahead of time. Guys, that to me is like not calling the night before to confirm an appointment, thinking that by simply calling to confirm that you're planting the seed they should cancel. None of that is true. You're not that powerful, trust me. Right? So ask the question to get the answer so that so when Mike says, I think it's going to take us about 48 hours to get the report back and go through it and get back to you. Excellent. If Mike says it's going to take a week, well, then we're going to have a conversation around that. Wow, a week. Typically I look for that in 48 hours. Do you think that you can hit that instead of the week? And maybe he says, well, I'm not sure because we might have X, Y, and Z. If there's a reason it might take a little longer, let's have the conversation. And yet I'm still going to drive forward and be directive to ask for information in a certain time period, because what I know is that time is no one's friend. Remember we had that conversation? Time is no one's friend in a transaction. And so we need to keep these things moving. Plus, I have sellers who are interested in what the next steps are. And so once I set that expectation with Mike for 48 hours, I get to go back to the sellers and say, I should be hearing back from the buyer's agent within 48 hours. That's the time frame that he and I have set up. If I don't hear back from him in like 36 to 40 hours, I will absolutely call and make sure that we're still on target for 48. I'm not waiting for 48 to turn into 72 before I make a phone call. I'm going to make that phone call ahead of time saying, hey, Mike, it's Rick Scott just checking in. Don't mean to be a pest. I know you said within 48 hours, which is probably late this afternoon. Just curious if we're still on track for that or if we can have that conversation now. Does that make sense to everybody? So you're the one setting the expectations. You're the one having people put in their calendars when they need to get back to you, instead of you just accepting whatever the agent for the buyer says. As the listing agent, you need to be in control of that.
Rick, can I add something?
Yeah, of course. Steve.
A pet peeve of mine is always as a listing agent, when the buyer's agent says, we have to wait for the report, they have to go through it, and they don't set a time frame, and then you get some type of response. Well, they want to get a price on it. They need more time. And sometimes it's hard to get through to the buyer's agent on this is, hey, tell me where you are today. You got the report, they went through it. This you're going to ask for, this you need to get a price on, just let me know. And I do find that very often it is tough to get that through. And whether they can't get through to the buyer on that. But to your point, you got to tell the seller something, and the more time that goes by, the more difficult that becomes, and they potentially start to sour on things.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I'll give you a quick tip. Depending on the document that you are utilizing, there should be a little blank that actually outlines how many days the buyers and the buyer's agents expect to be able to get back to you. They wrote it in the offer. And I will grab those documents and show you on Wednesday where that is in each of the 3 documents. But there's a little spot in there that they made a representation, and usually it's 2 to 3 days, right? And so don't be afraid to hold people, right? As a listing agent, one of your jobs is to hold everybody to their dates. And one of those dates should be, how many days will it take for you to get back to us with inspection items? I could not agree more with what Steve said, in that let's focus on where are we today? Understanding that you have to get a price on that piece for the septic. What else are we looking at other than that, right? Is that the only issue, or are there other issues? Let's get a jump on what we have to get a jump on right now, knowing that that other thing might be a price. And I'll tell you, for me, having people get prices is like jumping the gun, right? To dive right into, and I see a whole lot of nodding heads from all the listing agents on the call, right? The idea is, what are the issues that the buyers are concerned about? Let's have that conversation first, and then decide whether or not it even makes sense for the buyer to go and get a price on something. If the list is as long as my arm, the seller may just decide, oh, you know what, you don't have to worry about getting that price from the septic system. I think we're done here, right? Or if the list is this big, maybe the seller simply says, you know what, we don't have to worry about getting a price on replacing that cover. I will just handle that prior to the close, because the list was reasonable and short, right? And so I think that buyers and buyers agents do themselves a disservice by not getting the initial ask on the table, so that we can all start working on solving that next issue, or else we're all in la la land, right? Couldn't agree more, couldn't agree more, couldn't agree more. And you may have to, I think excellent listing agents get really, really skilled at helping buyer's agents without sounding condescending, or without sounding like dictatorial.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is having those conversations that says, hey, Mike, it's Rick Scott. I'm just wondering where we are on the inspection issues, knowing that we were looking at later today. And Mike says, oh, well, we're kind of nowhere, because they're not really interested in giving the list until they have prices on these, 3 different things. Getting better skilled at saying something to the effect of, oh, you know what, I completely understand where you're at. The last time I had a buyer who did that, here's what I did to help drive that forward, if it would be helpful, right? So now it's not me saying, well, Mike, if you did it this way, maybe you'd get better results. It's helping educate the person on the other side without wagging a finger. Because what I have found is that I would say probably 6 times out of 10, when you do that, the person is so grateful. They're not going to say thank you so much for that script, or thank you so much for that help, oftentimes. But when they hang up with you, what they're thinking is, wow, I wasn't quite sure how to move that forward. I am so grateful that Dee just said that to me, so I could then take that and use it, right? So it's giving people the ammunition they need to help their own clients without it being a finger wag.
I would also say, don't overlook the opportunity that you have to use Porch. We've had some really good success with it, and it's made it much less stressful and faster to resolve some things. And you need to test it out to see how it works for you, but we've had some really good success with it.
Rick, can I add one more thing about you representing a buyer on the inspection?
Yes.
I never let if I'm representing the buyer, I never let the inspection day end without contacting the listing agent. Just to say, this is what happened, nothing official here, that we're waiting for the report, etc. But I don't think there are any deal breakers. Just kind of set a tone, because you know they're on pins and needles, they're clients on pins and needles. So it just sets a really nice tone between the agents going forward.
Yeah, agreed. And when we get to when we start our buyer unit and we get to the anatomy of the buyer transaction, you will see that step built into the anatomy of the buyer transaction, which is make that phone call proactively. On this side, what I wanted to be certain that we covered was, as the listing agent, if that call isn't proactively made, you proactively make it. Right. And to that, I would even maybe set the expectation beforehand, right? When Dee and I are having a conversation and she says that she's heading to the inspection at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, that's awesome. I'm going to shoot her a quick text, hey, good luck today at the inspection. I'm available on my cell phone. If you have any questions, please do me a favor. If you could just connect with me when you're done, so I can A, let the sellers know that you're finished, and B, answer any additional questions that you might have, right? So now I'm setting the expectation that when Dee's done, she's just going to let me know where we stand. Not specifically, but generically. I love that. I want to go back to Porch for a second. So for those of you who don't know what Porch is a vendor connected through command that you can send an inspection report to. And how long does it take to get it back?
Anywhere between 24 to 48 hours.
So 24 to 48 hours. So within a day or two, you get a report back from local contractors quoting the issues that came up in the inspection report. Right, so it maybe isn't necessarily what you'll use to negotiate, and yet it certainly puts legs underneath some of this stuff earlier, so you can determine whether it's a $20,000 issue or a $2,000 issue or a $200 issue right from the start. Right, so it's a really if you haven't used it yet, I encourage you, connect that up. I'm certain if you're doing the Marty Miller challenge. If it hasn't come up already, it will.
Because it's totally free and it really saves you time and stress.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those things. Don't be as concerned that it's not your contractor giving the price. Again, it's all sourced locally depending on where you are. And it can really keep the ball moving in those conversations. Number 19, keep tabs on the mortgage. Has the client made formal application? I know that sounds like a ridiculous question. However, I have in my career gotten to this point in time and didn't ask that question and found that nobody asked that question. And the buyers just thought that was kind of automatically done for them. They never actually said, okay, I need to apply and start the mortgage process. And so we got a couple of weeks in only to find out that they had never done that. Oops, right? So it's on this list to make sure that you actually are checking up and making sure that they've made formal application. Has the appraisal been scheduled? When is it? Of course, inform the sellers when the appraisal is going to take place. Number 20. 21, check in with the seller's attorney. Make sure that you know when contracts are completed and they've been sent to the buyer's attorney. So again, you see that this checklist is now check in here, check in there, check in here, check in there. And again, it's not you being a pest. It's you verifying that the next steps have been, that everyone's moving forward and offering assistance. How can I help? 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 Facilitation of these transactions is part of the job when you are a listing agent.
Rick,
Number 20, yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This literally happened to me today. So we have a deal for a buyer. It's actually family. And I keep asking him, I said, okay, so where are we with the appraisal? Do you know if it's been ordered? And he goes, oh, I'll email my guy. He doesn't want me to talk to the mortgage broker. And it's a little awkward because it's family. I have every right to call the mortgage broker at any time in any of my deals, correct?
So I'm sorry, tell me who you represent and who the
I represent the buyer, who happens to be our nephew. And he's had this pre-approval from, I think it's Citibank, And every time I bring it up, he's like, oh, I'll call him. And I said, well, I'm happy to call him and find out for you. No, I'll email him. So anyway, today he finally, when I explained to him that appraisals are getting delayed often by many banks given the climate, you know, I'd really like to just follow up and make sure, because we've had a deal for 2 weeks, the contracts were signed, and I haven't gotten a call for the appraisal. He literally he said, okay, I'll forward you the email. And the guy, the mortgage broker literally said, great, I've just FedExed you the application. And I just emailed back like, do you mean the application appraisal that I thought was already ordered, or are you talking about the mortgage application? So I'm so, anyway, I can't believe this happened to me, and it happened today, and it was from my nephew. So anyway, my fault. I should have called and spoken to the guy directly weeks ago. But it's interesting how, I guess it's because it's family. Maybe he was like, it was weird, so I didn't push it.
Yeah.
Rick?
So here's what I would say. First, I would ask, is it your nephew or Mike's nephew? Because usually these problems happen on Mike's side of the family.
Mike's nephew.
Of course.
Yeah, okay. So that makes better sense. Right? That at least makes better sense to me, because now I know where it's at. And hey, it wasn't your sister this time.
Right.
Right.
It's the nephew-in-law, so
Well,
it's not the family relative.
It's her daughter, actually. It's my sister's daughter and her husband.
Got it.
It's on
So
my niece
I think that the real answer to this lives in setting expectations up front, right? So first and foremost, when it's family or friends, same process. Don't shortcut anything. Don't, they have to behave the same way as everybody else. And frankly, it's harder to keep them in line because they think that they don't have to listen so much, right?
Right.
And so setting expectations up front on something like this to simply say, now again, this is it's a buy-side conversation, and yet setting expectations to say, look, there may be times during this transaction, and I'm talking about as you're writing the offer, there may be times during this transaction in order to help facilitate this forward that I will be making outreach to both your attorney, to either your attorney or your loan officer or the appraiser. I just want to be clear about that up front. We're not asking permission per se. We're setting the expectation that there may be times that I will be doing that. And so when you've set that expectation up front, then when you get to go and do it, if someone's upset you did it, you get to say, oh, you know what, I'm so sorry. I certainly didn't mean to upset you. If you remember, we had this conversation way back when, that there may be times where I have to communicate directly with the team that we've assembled.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this is one of those times, right? So I think it lives further back in the transaction, because once you get here, if you have somebody who's don't call anybody, it's tough to navigate through that, because especially when they're family, right? It's tough to navigate through that because the expectation wasn't set early enough.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks.
You're welcome. 22, once you know that the contracts have been sent, again, more communication. Make sure the buyer's agent knows that the contracts are there and that everyone is signing, right? That's one of those things that I can't tell you, probably once a quarter or twice a quarter, I hear issues coming up where something went sideways and everybody thought contracts were signed and contracts weren't signed, right? And so we need to be really on top of that to the point of being a little bit of a pain about it. Do we have signed contracts? And if it were me today, I would, because it's a simple press of a button, once the contract is signed, I would just ask for a copy to be sent to you. They don't send it to us normally in a normal course of process. And yet again, it's not like they have to mail it or copy it. Just push forward and send me a copy of the contract so I can see with my own 2 eyes that it's signed.
And the other thing about that is Command wants those contracts. There's a place for them to go in your opportunity, and it's reading them, and it needs it to make itself smarter. So it's a step that we need to add to our process.
Yeah, to Debbie's point, when contracts are collected in Command, what Command is designed to do over time as it continues to read all of the actual real estate contracts that we put into it, it will start to be able to tell you, give you reports based on what it has seen in terms of accepted offers and transactions, that when you start making offers, knowing what it's read from the contracts, it can help you make better offers moving forward, because it's read the contracts and knows exactly what has been accepted, what people said yes to. That's all that AI, like, you know, crazy Terminator stuff. And yet it could be really helpful long-term if we'll populate them. Negotiate any inspection items through to the satisfaction of both parties. That's number 23. Once this is completed, make sure that all the items are drawn up on a list that both parties agree to. They can either sign it or they can email back and forth saying that everything's good, but I would absolutely get agreement from both parties on what those issues are. And then I would send that list to the attorney so that somebody else has a copy of that, right? So you don't get to a closing table and everyone looks around and says, septic repair? What's septic repair? I don't remember that, right? We call that selective amnesia. It happens all the time. So steer clear of selective amnesia by having everybody sign a piece of paper saying this is what we agree to. Checking with the buyer's mortgage again, know those contingency dates. It fascinates me when listing agents say things to me like, well, the attorney didn't do anything about the mortgage contingency date. Well, it's only partially the attorney's job. Again, your job is to make sure, as the listing agent, is to make sure everyone's moving forward on all those dates. You should know what the mortgage contingency date is for the buyers of your listings and be having conversations a week before that contingency date with the buyer's agent to say, hey, are we going to meet this contingency date? Don't just assume that the attorney will handle that. Because if there's one thing that I find that attorneys oftentimes let slip through the cracks, it's that date. So stay really focused on that date and ask some questions to make sure that everyone's on track. 25, number 25, star number 25. It sounds like a stupid one. And yet I'm going to tell you what, I have seen more closing days be confused because the sellers didn't start packing early enough and they're running around like crazy people attempting to get things done. Everything's on the front lawn. People are crying. They ran out of boxes and right. So number 25, at this point in time, it might be a month before closing. It might be 6 weeks before closing. Encourage them to start the packing process. Anything that they can get packed and boxed and stuck into the garage or in the basement or wherever they're putting things till moving day, encourage them to start doing that. Encourage them to open the attic and take a look up there at this point in time. Because oftentimes they look at the attic 3 days before it's supposed to close. And if they're anything like any of the rest of us, their attic is jammed full of crap that they forgot about. So minimally, they have to get a dumpster in and have somebody remove all that crap, or maximally, they have to pack it, right? So again, I know 25 seems like a duh, and yet the earlier you can encourage them to start packing, the smoother your transaction will go. The sellers will appreciate it because they will be less stressed out those last week or two before the closing. Make sense? Okay. Number 26, once you have all this stuff going and all your plates are spinning and you're all happy with where everything's at, you do end up falling into a spot where not a whole lot happens, right? You have that lull. There's usually like that 30-day period or so between all the stuff and then the closing. This is the perfect opportunity for you to make sure that your sellers know that they are not just a transaction to you. They are not just a paycheck for you. And I wholeheartedly encourage you to create a system where you're contacting them every 48 to 72 hours. Every 2 to 3 days, even during that down period, they should be hearing from you twice a week. Hey, how's it going? Just wanted to make sure there was nothing you needed, anything come up. You know, I've missed talking to you every single day. Just wanted to hear your voice, right? Whatever system you're going to put into place to make sure that there there's communication. You may develop moving or packing checklists and send those to them. You may call them and see how the packing's going. You may call them and ask if they need any resources for packing, right? Any of those kinds of things. Number 27, make sure you keep the market center and your MCA in the loop for any closing date changes. We invoice based on the closing date you give us. And so if that's moved up, you need to let us know that so that we get the invoice out earlier. If it's delayed, less of an issue, and yet we still like to know so we can keep track on our pendings report about when that property is going to close. Number 28, once a closing date's been settled on, another system needs to kick in, right? For about a week or 10 days prior to that closing date, your system of prepping your sellers to get them to the closing table needs to start happening. And what that looks like is in number 29, right? There's a system that you build that call number 1 may be, hey, just confirming that you heard the closing date is scheduled for 10 days from now. Call number 2 the next day is, hey, I just wanted to remind you about how utilities work, right? They're not necessarily canceling utilities. They're going to put a stop order in so that the new people can put a go order in their name. Some people don't know how that works and they just cancel everything. And if they cancel things too early because they're not living there, well, it's a real pain in the ass for the I shouldn't have said pain in the ass, but it is a pain in the ass for the buyer because then they have to have somebody come out to turn the gas on and stuff like that. So having a conversation about how that transition works and reminding them to call is a part of that system. If there's oil heat, reminding them to have the oil tank stuck just before the closing so that is handled. Speaking to their attorney if there's anything else that needs apportioning, like if there's public water or they're apportioning anything other than the normal stuff, right? Talking to them about having a change of address with the post office. And you see the rest of them, right? Including gathering keys and warranties and all that stuff. But this is a system that we're pushing forth to you so that you have another conversation every single day with the sellers. Instead of giving them one big long checklist saying, here, get this done, see you at the closing, I encourage you to have a system that's more communicative so that every day or every other day you're making another phone call to say, hey, just wanted to check in. Did that happen? Here's the next step. Did that happen? Here's the next step. Wanted to remind you about this. Right? Or you could give them this big long list as a document 7 to 10 days beforehand, and then just call anyway to keep them moving through the document, right? But it's the communication that I'm looking to really underline here, because you're gearing them up now for that closing day.
I would underline that as well. James Shaw today on Shift was talking about bulletproofing transactions. He does that about 3 times a week if you watch him on Shift, because it's really, really important right now. And one of the lines that comes directly from the Shift book is constant communication creates confident clients. And what Rick just said is exactly that.
It's a lot of C's, I like that. Number 30, check in daily as the day approaches. We just talked about that. 31, I would also star, because I'm going to tell you that I know that Debbie still does this with our clients, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you get the most bang for your buck when you, at number 31, send lunch to a seller's house on move-out day, right? Find out when that move-out day is going to be, and here's the real trick. Find out who's going to be there. Find out how many people that entails, including how many of the movers are going to be there, and just send a couple of pizza pies and a couple of 2 liters of Diet Coke, or a mini, what are those called? Those heroes, like a 3-foot hero, to the house to feed not just the clients, but the people who are there to move. I will tell you, it saves so many people so much aggravation and stress. The last time I moved, I can remember it was like 11:30, 11:40. There were clouds rolling in. my furniture was on the front lawn and hadn't quite been wrapped or put into the, or maybe it was wrapped, but it hadn't been put into the truck yet. And I'm watching the clouds roll in, and I'm watching then the movers get into the truck and start to pull away. I'm like, oh, where are you going? They said, oh, we're going to lunch. Like, okay, do you not see those clouds and all of my furniture on the front? They're like, no, it's fine. We'll be back. We just need a half hour. And off they went. So if you will provide lunch for the sellers, they don't have any food in the refrigerator. And even if they did, they have no utensils and no plates, right? And so they need to eat. And when you provide it for extra people, then they can offer it to the movers and keep the movers on the premises working. And so they don't have to go out and drive around and find lunch. I think you get a lot of kudos for that. And I think it's something that people remember. So I encourage it. And then of course you need to strip everything down, take the lockbox off, take your stuff out of the house. 33, make sure the sellers know when the buyer's agent will do the walkthrough. Make sure the buyer's agent knows where the key is. If you've taken the lockbox off, make sure the agent knows that beforehand, right? If they have to come to the office to get the keys first, or leave the lockbox on until after the walkthrough and then grab it afterwards. Number 34, I know is really A, not possible right now, and B, changing as quickly as everything else is, where we don't necessarily go to closings as often as we used to. I do encourage it if in fact you can make yourself available for that closing. It's a sign of support. It's a show of solidarity with the seller. And I think the really important piece of it is that there's only one person who has literally been there from the day they put the house on the market to the closing day. And that's you, the listing agent. You're the only one who's been there through the entire time. And so your file is the most complete of anything. And so if anybody needs anything at the closing and you're there, it is always helpful. Of course, when you're doing that, use that time to get testimonials. It's a perfect opportunity to get video testimonials, or if they're willing to write you a testimonial, or if you're writing your own testimonials and bringing them to them saying, hey, you know what, I could so use a testimonial from you for marketing purposes. I took the liberty of writing this for you. Is this how you would describe your experience with me? I know some of you are horrified by that, and yet I will tell you what, there are more people who are happier to sign something that you wrote on their behalf because it's fast and simple. They want to help you out. They don't want to have to take the time to actually write something. So if you just write a couple of sentences for them and show it to them, they're more than happy to sign that. Of course, take your MLS responsibilities seriously. Report the sold within 48 hours. And then I want you to focus on this follow-up plan, because I want you to make sure that you are in contact with the sellers within 24 hours after the closing. Oftentimes, well, sometimes I will say that we tend to communicate with our buyers more after the closing than we do our sellers. And I think it's just as important that you have a follow-up program with your sellers, even if they're leaving and going to California. Well, they lived here for 4 years, right? So what are they likely leaving behind?
Friends and family.
It's referral opportunities. You said it, Bogdan, right? They're leaving referral opportunities behind. So you don't want to burn that bridge in any way. And so the plan that I would encourage you to use is a plan that I think works for buyers and for sellers and for how we're going to finish up our conversation today. And I'll give you that in a second. And that is a call within 24 hours, another call within the first 7 days, and then the third call within the first 30 days after the closing. So that's 3 phone calls, which is different than an email or a text, 3 actual phone call outreaches within the first 30 days after the closing. That is probably more communication than most of us are doing right now with our seller closed clients. Probably by a touch or two. Most of us are doing at least a follow-up, right? If we do closing gifts, we may do a closing gift follow-up. for the seller as well. I think the 3 times, certainly on the buyer side, certainly on the seller side, it allows you, it earns you the right to keep the communication going longer term. If they are going to California, within 1 day, they're probably still traveling. So that phone call gets to be, hey, I know you're probably still headed on your way out to California. I just wanted to say it was such a privilege to work with you. I was honored that you chose me for the sale of your property. I'm happy to help any friends and family that you might be able to think of. And then the 1 week is, hey, are you settled in? Maybe they had another closing of something they were purchasing somewhere else, and you're checking in on that. And then within 30 days, it's just that I'm not going to forget about you. And then you pop them into your 36 Touch program, right? And so now you're communicating with them 4 times a year with all of the other stuff supporting that. But you've earned the right to keep the communication because you've done 3 follow-up care calls within the first 30 days. The last piece that I want to touch on before we finish tonight is this. That system of touching people within 24 hours, 7 days, and 30 days not only works for buyers and for sellers that you work with, but as a listing agent, I am going to highly encourage you to develop and implement a system for orphans. What do I mean by orphans?
People that are going somewhere that have no family, no friends.
So keep going. That's not exactly what I mean. But that's a good guess, but it's not exactly what I mean.
The people
have sold their homes with another realtor and the realtor hasn't kept in touch.
Exactly.
Right. So very specifically, again, remember, this is the end of our listing conversation. So as listing agents, when you're on the list side, the orphan is the buyer that purchased your listing. Why do we call them orphans?
Because their agent forgot about them.
Because 9 times out of 10, if you were on Len Schwartz's call earlier today, you know the statistics, right? 88% of all buyers would say that they would use their agent again, and only 12% actually do. And that has nothing to do with the buyers for the most part. It has to do with our industry, right? Our industry is terrible at the follow-up. And so when you have buyers who purchase your listings, applying those same statistics to the buyers of your listings, there's a 7 in 10 chance that the person who sold them that house is not going to do anything to follow up with them and stay in touch. And so my advice to you is develop a program for the orphans and just make it as if you sold them the house. Use the exact same system that you're going to use for your buyers and your own sellers. And within 24 hours, make a phone call to the buyers of your listing to say, hey, Donna, this is Rick Scott. I don't think we ever actually met in person. I actually represented the Joneses who you just purchased their home, who just sold you their home. I just wanted to call and say congratulations and check in and see how you're settling in. And you would be amazed by just a phone call the following day from you, the kind of impression that makes. And then when you make a second one within the first week, hey, it's Rick Scott again, just checking in. I know that you're only in the house for 5 or 6 days. I wanted to make sure that there weren't any questions that you had. I am still in contact with the sellers, so if you had questions that would be helpful for me to ask of them, I'd be happy to do that for you. Maybe you have a closing gift for your orphans. That first week is a perfect time to drop that off. That might be your second communication. I'm going to tell you what, if you will put something like that in place by the 3rd phone call within 30 days, 50% of those people think that you sold them the house. And then when you automatically move them into your 36 touch program and you're now contacting them phone to phone or face to face 4 times a year, and there's another 30 plus communications via either mail or digital, I'm going to say that that number who think that you sold them the house goes up to probably 75 or 80% after the first year. Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? We always get to have an argument about this strategy, so I'm just gearing up for it.
I love it, Rick. I think you double your sold database just by doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right? If you're looking for ways to grow your database, the buyers of your listings, if your listing client is going away and that feels like oh, that's too bad. Now I have one less person who's local. Well, just replace them with the buyers. I think my record was 3 times. I listed a house, sold it to somebody, obtained them as clients, listed that house, sold it again, and then obtained the next people as clients and listed that house again. So I had the listing 3 times. I didn't sell it any of the 3 times myself, but I took the listing 3 times in a row.
Hey, Rick.
Because of an orphan program. Go ahead, Kim.
Sorry. My favorite way to do this is with a rental. When I'm the renting agent bringing the buyer, I get to know the landlord somehow, some way. And I've actually sold the house twice doing that.
Love it.
On the lease, you get their email, their address. So I find their information is a little easier to get and a little easier to kind of get in with anyway.
Yeah, indeed. Well, and that's one of the questions I often get asked is how do you get the buyer's contact information? Generally speaking, throughout the transaction, there's a contract information form that gets floated around, right? That has everybody's info on it, unless I'm just out of the loop on that document. But we're still using that document, I'm pretty sure, right? So you have mostly you have that information, and as a listing agent, by the way, you should insist on that document. If for no other reason, then that's how you get all that information. So make sure that you're the one completing the contract information form and then send it over to the buyer's agent to say, hey, you know what? We need to have everybody's information on this one document, and then distribute that to the attorneys as well as part of what you distribute, right? And so the other thing you can do is if for some reason you don't have contact information for the buyers, what do you have?
The address.
You have the address, and you have a car and a driver's license. So put those things to work and just drive over and do a ding dong. Hey, you know a ding dong? That's the doorbell. And you can just kind of meet them in person. Go on a Saturday morning. Hey, just wanted to, I know you closed 3 or 4 days ago. We haven't met. My name's Rick Scott. I represented the Joneses. Just seeing how you're doing. I guarantee you the person that sold them their house did not show up on their doorstep on Saturday morning to see how they were doing and if they had any questions about the house. I guarantee it.
With a pie.
Say it again.
With a pie.
And if you bring a gift, they like you even better.
Yeah.
That's right. And it doesn't have to be a $100 gift card to Home Depot. It can be a pie. That's exactly right. Right? Remember the old days where the neighbors brought pie? Well, the neighbors don't bring pie anymore, so you might as well do it and bring that back. Right? It's like European kissing on one on both sides. You just got to bring that back. I didn't say French kissing, Debbie Orr. Debbie's mind went right to the gutter. I said European kissing. Anyhow.
COVID kissing.
Oh.
But what if you already do the European kissing? Then
what is that,
then
Debbie?
It is French kissing.
No. Then you might have to go with 3. Boom, boom, boom. I think that's like more Portuguese, right? The 3?
That's Serbian. Serbian.
Serbian?
Kiss
Okay.
3 times.
Hey, come on, leave Portuguese out
And
of
south of France does that too.
Oh my goodness. we'll spend so much time kids. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Any other questions on the orphan program?
Can I just ask, Rick, did you ever get like a cease and desist from from the listing agent that was, they had a good contact and they said like, hey, this the listing agent keeps coming around and talking to me. Like, did that ever happen to you?
Yes. Has anyone ever called and said, why do you keep contacting my client? Yes.
And you said?
Well, what I said was, I appreciate the phone call. I'm curious, do you still have a document that ties them to you? Well, because the answer is no, right? After the closing, whose client is it? Nobody. Nobody's, right? And I will tell you that in the years that I worked in orphan program, I had that happen 2 times. Twice. Just like when I was the team leader of the Ridgefield Market Center and we started to recruit heavily out of the Weichert office, the manager of the Weichert office called me and said, are you Rick Scott? I said, yes, I am. He said, well, this is so-and-so from next door at Weichert. And I said, hi, so-and-so, how are you? And he said, well, I'm not so good. And I said, you're not? Well, why is that? He said, well, you just recruited 3 of my agents. And I said, yes, I did. And he said, well, I'm calling today to ask you to stop doing that. That sounds like Dan Raposo's laugh.
It is.
Dan Raposo's laugh, right? And I said, well, Jim or Tom or whatever his name was, I said, why would I do that? And he said, well, I don't think it's very nice that you're dialing in and recruiting our agents. And I said, I am so sorry. He said, well, will you stop? And I said, no. I'm sorry that you wasted your time with this phone call. Have a lovely afternoon. I mean, come on, right? Really? And so here's the argument that we sometimes get to have around the orphan program. So I'm going to bring it up. Is that people are afraid that other agents will be mad at them because you're beginning to have conversations and relationships with quote unquote their clients. And what I would say to you is, I look at it completely differently. If you will put a valid orphan program in place, I think all we're doing is asking our colleagues and competitors, let me restate that, asking our colleagues who are competitors, because we're not going to do an orphan program with in-house sales, right? Those are orphans that aren't orphans. We know who their parents are, right? We're gonna leave them alone. However, with our colleagues who are also our competitors outside of our market centers, I believe that by implementing a valid program like that, all you're doing is raising the bar. You're asking them to create better relationships with their own clients. They won't necessarily see it that way, and yet that's the path that I would go down. That's how I justify it in my mind. I'm just helping everybody raise the level of play. And if you're unwilling or unable to create and maintain the relationships with your own clients that I'm going to, well, then you don't deserve a repeat sale from them when they list. And everybody's fair game. After the closing, everybody's fair game. And so I would say, don't pick a fight. Don't be snarky or nasty if you get a phone call. That's when the words "I'm sorry" come into play, but with an add-on. I'm sorry you feel that way. Right? I'm sorry you feel that way is how you communicate the I'm sorry without having to really be sorry about what you're doing, because you're not sorry that you're creating a relationship with a potential client. And yet you are sorry that the person feels that way. And only twice did that happen. Sadly, I think nobody else even recognized it. Nobody else even knew it. Because you're not necessarily doing it in their face, right? Which is why you spread it out. You wait some time. anyway, I encourage you to put that in play because I think it's a real winner. I promised you that we would be out early today, and so therefore we're going to end at 6:28 instead of 6:30. I'm not quite sure how it got to be 6:30. So we will end early because I'm a man of my word. And with that, we're going to start on Wednesday, bright and early at 5, which is when we start anyway. And we'll start our buyer unit. Bring any seller questions that you have, because I will start Wednesday off with anything that we didn't cover or that is unclear or that is burning a hole in your brain about the seller side, the list side. Bring those questions. We'll start there, and then we'll dive right into buyers. And I will send you on Wednesday Wednesday morning. I'll send you all the buyer scripts so that you have them ready in case we get to them on Wednesday night. Have a great night, guys. I appreciate your time and effort and energy. Be well, be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Thank you, Rick.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.